We got that's Rich Winter, of course. It is the business of sport. Every Wednesday, we always talk different businesses in sport. And our next guest today is somebody who's been involved in hockey, been involved in NCAA football, and now is involved in pickleball, one of the fastest growing sports where I think all of the average weekend warriors think they can be a professional. It's amazing. They're like, oh, I could be a pickleball star. And man, there's like, now you're seeing videos of pickleball fights. Like, what is going on? It's becoming clearly an emotional game, but it is a lot of fun. Mike Nealy joined us. He was the CEO of the Arizona Coyotes. He was the executive director of the Fiesta Bowl. And of course, now is the CEO of USA Pickleball. Mike, welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
Thank you. Thanks for the introduction. I'm doing great down here in Scottsdale.
Oh, nice. So tell me, how does one become the CEO of Pickleball America?
What a path that makes. How far back do you want me to go? Right. Well, I'll tell you, probably unlike most people that want to get into sports and think it's a great thing. That was not a passion of mine. I was in corporate business for 14 years and of course, always liked sports, played the sports and coached sports and did all the bit. And it's really one of those opportunities that came along. Sometimes you bounces go your way. And I was, in the corporate world, and I'd worked with somebody that ultimately ended up doing some consulting work with, at that time, the new Minnesota Wild franchise. And I got a call and said, hey, they're looking for a finance guy, because that was my world before I was born to finance. And he said, hey, they're looking for a finance guy. Would you be interested? And, that came to be, and I ended up working in the finance world in the early years of the Minnesota Wild. And then a few years after that, got recruited down to Gretzky land at the time with the then Phoenix Coyotes. And you had Barnett as GM and Gretzky coaching. And a lot of things happened along that, including ownership changes, bankruptcies, and how much of those stories you want to get into. I have a few good ones, but then that kind of ran its course. New ownership ultimately came in, and they wanted to run the show, understandable, and an opportunity came up in the football world right in town here. So then I found myself kind of resurrecting and starting out with the Fiesta Bowl and getting that up and running and back on track. And then that kind of ran its course, and I got a call about this new game of pickleball. And I played pickleball, and it's a fun game, and the growth was going crazy, and I got kind of interested in it. And then next thing you know, I'm running pickleball, and 2.5 years later, here we are, and 25 million people are playing it and growing. It's going crazy.
25 million. It's unbelievable.
It is. Wow. So let's kind of, in the business of sport, we like to talk about all the different businesses. So you are the CEO of the Coyotes, and at a time, Mike, and not talking out of school, I think it's fair to say that didn't have the most secure ownership for a lot of time in Arizona. That was probably the biggest challenge. And I don't care what business you run, if you don't have secure ownership, there's always going to be, cutting a corner here, cutting a corner there. And, it might be a small corner, but slowly, you end up on the inside of the track and everybody else is flying by you on the outside of the track, and you're cutting all the corners, right? So What was, as a CEO there in that, what was the biggest challenge when you just didn't have like that secure ownership?
That was the issue, and that really is the story of the Coyotes. I mean, I'll argue all day that Phoenix is not a hockey market. This is a hockey market. People like myself moved down here from Minnesota and Canada and all the hockey markets, and there's a lot of great hockey going on down here. You have to have a product, right? That people want to believe in, and when you don't have secure ownership and you don't have a competitive team, people are not, especially in markets like this, you need to compete with a lot of other sports. And if you're not winning and putting on a good product, and we weren't for a long time. And, the early days really was, I was on the CFO role, so I'm counting the beans and trying to do what we can while ownership changed a few months after I showed up. And then Jerry Moyes came in, and the market tanked not long after that. And he got into a situation where he was farming the team out, and ultimately that, filed for bankruptcy. And if you want to get into a good story, I can tell you the inside story about that a little bit. But some interesting things happened, and pretty soon a lot of people kicking the tires. The league ended up taking over the organization, and under the league's leadership, that was a year we went to the conference finals. But
2012.
I'd mark that off to, we didn't have ownership issues. We didn't have, an ownership son trying to get involved. We didn't have noise. Maloney and I just did what we thought needed to happen and focused on it, had a chip on our shoulder, and we had a very successful year.
Yeah, but it was without Brizgalov. Doesn't matter what Maloney did, right?
Yeah. You catch a goalie. We just saw that in the Olympics, right? The goalies can make a huge difference.
No, and actually, but that was an interesting experience for me too, Mike, because I represent Briz at the time, and I remember, Mike, you guys had no money, so there was no way you could pay Briz as much as you wanted to have him. I remember going to Maloney and saying, "Don, like, well, why don't we try and trade him? Because we all win. You get something for him." So they got a 3rd round pick. And then if they signed him, they get another 3rd round pick. And it worked out amazing for all of us because you guys got 2 3rd round picks. I fly into Philadelphia with Brizgalov and go directly to Joe's for a Philly cheesesteak and do lots of video. And all of a sudden, the whole town's, rabid with the possibility of getting this Vezina Trophy nominee. And we get crazy money. You get 2 3rd round picks, and we all make out like banshees. It was interesting. And then, but the funny thing about it, I was nervous when we did that. If we didn't do that deal, I said to Briz, like, buddy, we go to July 1st, and Vokun, a little older, he's out there with exactly the same stats. They're going to find his interest in maybe a 3-year deal at $3 or $4 million to be appealing. So it ended up working out well. We got 58 million, and Vokun ended up with, there wasn't another dance chair when the music stopped, and he got 1.5 million over years. So it was that was a really good experience for me. So thank goodness you guys were. Well, I guess it wouldn't have mattered if you weren't broke. You would have signed him, and he would have been in a great spot there too.
Yeah, that's true. And the business of hockey, right?
Yeah, and Briz loved it there. Yeah, he loved Marble Slab Creamy, Kierland Resort over there. He's a regular, and he really enjoyed his time there. Just unfortunately,
of course, we ended up with Smith, right? And he brought us to a lot of success as well.
Smitty's a good goalie, for sure.
So Mike, you're CEO. When you're a CEO of an NHL team, can you kind of describe what do you like? I know you're responsible for everything, but you have to hire people, so you can't do everything, right? But when you're the CEO of an NHL team, what did you feel were the main responsibilities, and what did you learn kind of from, I guess, just trial and error in the better ways to do things as a CEO, maybe later in your career than you did the first few years as a CEO?
Yeah, well, you're always learning at any point in time, and CEO. That was my first stint as a CEO, and that chair is a lot different than being a number 2 guy. But I don't think anybody really appreciates or understands that until you're the guy, right? But it is a learning experience. That was it was tasking because we were financially strapped, so you couldn't do a whole lot. But a real key for anything is you get a good team, right? You're not going to do it yourself. And you can't have the ego where you want to build people around you that are either yes men or people that aren't going to challenge you. For me, I just hired as well as I could and get the people that are best at what they do, and then you let them do their job. You hold people accountable. You set your goals and try to make the right decisions, but you got to get good people and let them do their job.
Well, and Mike, how much problem was it? I mean, it's a long drive. People haven't spent a lot of time in Phoenix. If you're living up in Scottsdale, it really could have been at 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. It's an hour drive to the rink, right?
Yeah, it was a tough traffic pattern, and but in general, I mean, that's not something that you can't overcome. And like I said, that year 11, 12, when we went to conference finals, we were selling out the arena, right? People will come. I heard that when I was in Minnesota, right? They built the arena in St. Paul, and basically the word was nobody's gonna go to St. Paul. Minneapolis is where it's at. Well, we know what happened there, right? You put on a product, people will come to it for sure.
I remember going to my first Phoenix game, and I'm trying to find the parking attendant to pay for the parking.
Free parking, wasn't it?
Yeah, they didn't have one. I'm walking around looking. Finally, I said, like, where do I pay? And the guy said, oh, we don't pay here.
Yeah.
Wow, really?
We changed that. For sure. But to your point, Jason, we operated the arena, right? So that was a big part of the organization as well. So that was a whole nuance, of booking shows and organizing. And so you're running a whole arena staff and a whole bunch of stuff that it takes to operate arena, which is good as a organization, as a franchise, to actually control the arena as well, is a bonus. It's a lot of work and takes a lot of extra efforts, but it's good as an operator of a franchise to have that control.
And Mike, you're still there in Arizona, and now that the team's gone, I know it's only been a few years, and there's already talk that they'd like to bring hockey back. It is, I think, like the 7th largest TV market in the United States. So I understand why the NHL would want to be there, but the only way they're coming back is if solid ownership. Like, I just look at the difference between Utah under Smith and just how they run things compared to, how it was in Arizona. And it's night and day. You can make fans become, I think a lot of people like to be part of something. And so even if they're not the most, educated hockey fan to start, they'll be like, I'll go there. It's fun. The team's winning. It's in the community. Man, the owner's doing lots of stuff. And, he's got tons of money. So he's not worried about if he's losing money, because if he's losing money on hockey, he's using it as a write-off for his other companies that are making money. Like, these guys aren't idiots. Like, they're billionaires. They've done something right. So now that you're there and hockey isn't there, has it impacted, like, are less kids playing suddenly in the last few years? Is it vital for Arizona to get a team back just to kind of continue to grow, the inroads that they made at the minor hockey level?
Yeah, I think the answer would be it certainly would be advantageous. The ASU here has a strong collegiate hockey program, and the youth development programs that are pretty well developed here. I don't know the specific statistics, but I think it's still pretty strong here as far as the youth and development. And I think we don't have enough sheets of ice for sure. But I think it's still holding on. It's been a few years here now, and will it impact it? Maybe eventually. And I think certainly putting an NHL franchise back here would be a boost to it and continuing it. But I think there's still a strong, it's a southern market, of course, but like I mentioned, people move down here all from the northern states, right? The smart ones that got out of the snow, maybe, but we're hockey people that they're yearning for it, and I think the ASU does well filling their stadium or their arena for the hockey there, and the youth hockey is really strong here. I had a son that grew up through the youth stuff, and we've produced some pretty good players out of this market as well.
Well, and Mike, I was in Maricopa, where my partner has a winter place, and I took some clothes in to get tailored while I was there, and young man, the tailor's son, wearing a Utah Mammoth jersey, and I'm like, wow. I didn't put 2 to 2 together immediately, and he said, "Oh no, we missed the Coyotes." So a young Spanish mother and son were huge hockey fans, and just kind of interesting to see that. You're not really expecting it in that situation. And they're planning a trip. They said sometime. They didn't seem to be of more than humble circumstances, but they were planning a trip to get up to Las Vegas and see their team play at some point. Interesting.
It's missed, and it's frustrating that when you lose a franchise. I'll put myself in that category. Very frustrating, and it didn't have to happen. I mean, I'll give Bettman kudos. I mean, he did what he could. He could have went the franchise out of here a lot earlier and many different times, but I think he believes in the market. The ownership side just didn't work out. There was a revolving door there for a while, and just didn't have that strong ownership to do what you needed to do to have a stable franchise.
Yeah.
Mike Nealy joins us. He, of course, is the CEO of USA Pickleball, former CEO of the Arizona Coyotes. And when we come back, we are going to talk about the growth of pickleball and where it's going and how competitive suddenly it's come, even on a business side. Not so much the players, but people trying to want to run it in different leagues. We'll get into all that when we return here on the Gregor Show, presented by PlayAlberta.ca. The business of sport with Mike Nealy. He's the CEO of USA Pickleball, of course, former CEO of the Arizona Coyotes. And, being for one team, Mike, I'm assuming it's different when you're the CEO of Pickleball America. Now you oversee everything. So there's 25 million players now. I guess let's talk, like, what is Pickleball America? Like, who are you catering to? Who are you trying to attract? What's the plan?
Yeah, it's a lot different than CEO of a team or an organization. I'm the CEO of the governing body. So USA Pickleball is the governing body of pickleball. So that really, the best analogy that I use is in golf. You have the USGA. So we're responsible for setting the rules, sanctioning tournaments, the equipment certification, those types of things. Then we also run kind of the marquee event in nationals, that the culmination of making it and playing in nationals. We actually operate that nationals event. But the other players that are in the business would be there's 2 pro tours that play. There's actually a pro league that plays. Now they would all operate theoretically under the rules of USA Pickleball. They have some of their own nuances of the rules at the professional level and stuff, but it's kind of confusing to some people. But I'm really representing the governing body. So that is a little bit different than, we don't have a team or specifically a league that we are aligned with, if you will.
What are the goals, Mike, every year? Obviously, you're not winning the cup, but what are the goals? Just grow the sport, open it to more different demographic groups. Geographically. Yeah, I mean, our mission really is to grow and to facilitate the growth of this sport. Is more than anything. So. The sport, for most people think that it's a pretty new sport. It was invented back in 1965. So it's been around a long time. The growth really happened around the COVID timeframe, and when people got out, and then the entrance of some of these pro tours. I started 2.5 years ago in my position. I think there was 13 million players, right? Now we're up to 25. The projection, if you believe this or not, after next year, we'll surpass the number of people that are playing tennis. Wow.
And tennis is healthy and tennis is growing, but this sport just continues to grow so much. And there's great growth up there in Canada too. Pickleball Canada does a great job, and there's a lot of membership. As far as our business model, Rich, maybe to your question, we do have memberships, right? So to play in sanctioned tournaments, you need to be a member of the USA Pickleball. So that's a revenue source. But then we're also testing equipment and charging for that, and just general operating events and the sponsorships and the things that go along with that. A lot of very consistent with previous worlds that I've been in, but those are the main revenue drivers. But we are really a facilitator of growing this sport for the masses, and hopefully the pro tours benefit from that in turn, right? In the growth of this, it's not. It was kind of Grandpa and Grandma's game, right? That was the perception of it, and it still is played pretty heavily, at an older level group. But the largest group that's playing right now is the age group. I think 26 to 34 is the largest of that 25 million. That's the largest group, with the next younger group being the second largest. So this is becoming younger and younger, and it's played by men and women alike. It's continuing to catch on, and there's no sign of it slowing down.
Well, I think the real attraction has to be from a family or perspective. Is it, grandpa can play with grandson, and it's you can let the field levels pretty quickly in terms of, if you want to play at a level with an 8 or 10-year-olds, you can. I mean, it just seems like one of those few sports in the world where you can have a lot of fun if you're 72 and your grandson's 14.
Oh, I absolutely agree. Of course, at any sport, at the professional level, they're playing at a different level.
Yeah.
Yes, I can go out there and it's very, well, I play with my wife. I play with my 24-year-old daughter and my 20-year-old son, and I'm not sure if I can get him to do anything else with me too much, but it's really crosses ages, and it's a finesse sport as much as anything. I mean, more power is coming into it a little bit, but I remember going out one of my earlier times on my wife and I played, and there was a couple that we played. I didn't know who they were, but they were surely 20 years senior to me. I thought, well, this is going to be an interesting one. Well, they smacked us down. I mean, they knew what they were doing, and so it's an interesting.
I had a neighbor, 75 years old, invited me to play tennis. Now, I'm not a great tennis player. I didn't really want to go either because I thought it was going to be game over for him. Wow. I mean, it's all about placement of the ball, and he had me running around like I was in a marathon. It's unbelievable.
Well, Mike, the growth of the sport, you mentioned it's been around a long time, but it's suddenly exploded. Any idea why?
Yeah, I think COVID, it was something that you could get outside and play. And in this game, you get the ball and a paddle. I mean, you can draw some chalk lines on your street and put up a net and play, so it's pretty easy to play. That's a big part of it. That also coincided with the professional leagues that sprouted up. So then you started getting some attention, some, high profile names, high sports profile names were investing in these leagues. And so that maybe started gaining the interest of, what is going on? What is this sport? But really, if you get exposed to it and you play it, it's just a very welcoming. It's a fun sport to play, and usually it's a doubles game more than anything, and you can go out there and get a good exercise in, but it's not overtaxing. It kind of gets a hard knock. I mean, there's plenty of injuries that have come out of it because those of us that are 60 and still think that we can move like we're 20 try to do too much. But the stats don't confirm that it's a dangerous sport by any means. But people fall into this sport. It's kind of interesting where you talk to people and it's kind of life changing as well. I mean, I've talked to people that. A woman early on that, in tears was saying that, she thought her life was over. She'd lost her son and she was on the couch doing nothing. And her friend talked her into finally going out and playing and changed her life. Plays all the time. And it gave her a purpose. And, there's a lot of those stories out there too.
It reminds me a little bit of curling. I grew up in a small town in Western Canada. It's like, it was a social event. It was a way to get out. And it seems like it's pickleball clubs, they're all over the place, and it seems like a real healthy option for, loneliness is a big problem in our world, and these kind of things, when they can alleviate that, they grow like this thing's growing.
Yeah, and I hope it doesn't change because it's a very welcoming. I think for the most part, you can go to a park and people are playing, and I found that people were just very welcoming. Come on in, I'll show you how to play with us. It's a very social, welcoming group of people that seem to be playing this.
Big warning I hear from friends of mine that are playing. Little warm up and a little stretching, because when you have to make that one move that you thought you could still make because you feel 16 out there, there goes the Achilles tendon.
Absolutely.
Now, Mike, do you see, as the CEO, like professional league, how professional leagues are we talking, do you think? Like when you look at like some professional sports, there's a wide range. Like pro lacrosse has been around for a long, long time, and they don't make the same money as the NHL. And I know there's some people out there that think, everybody should just get paid the same and equality. I'm like, no, it's all about business. At the end of the day, how many people are going to watch it? Is pickleball? Would it be is it a television sport? Like when you look at the growth of it, where do you see pickleball going from a business standpoint, as far as not only the quality of players you can attract, but the type of league and sponsors and everything else? Like how potentially big, or what are the challenges facing it to become like a certified professional sports league?
Yeah, that's certainly a TBD, right? I mean, the TV audiences aren't there. I mean, the pro league is, there is a pro league, MLP. They're not turning money over right now, and they're getting an audience, but with so many people playing, it has not, my opinion, has not transitioned into a viewing sport yet, and I don't know if that's if that can happen. I think that's the big question. I think if there's going to be money there, and if you can support and pay players, you're going to need to have that sponsorship money that comes with eyeballs, and people need to be watching it, and that has not developed to that point yet.
We've been watching hockey since I was 4. I've been watching baseball since I was, there isn't that longevity where you grew up with the sport, watching on TV with your dad on a Monday night football game. That's probably going to be a big challenge, because it's just not in most people's long-term wheelhouse.
Yeah, that is true. And there's a lot of competition out there for, the sports watch, right? It's new, but well, I would say I'm an avid player. I mean, I don't play all the time, but I know that I shouldn't want to be watching it all the time, but to be honest, I don't sit down on a weekend and say, hey, let me find a pickleball match and I want to watch that, so I'm probably admitting something I shouldn't admit, but until it's something, and you can appreciate it, because like anything, that the pro level that they're at, and that is increasing exponentially probably as well. The talent that is there now, and now you have, just in a few years, you have people and kids that are focusing on this sport, so what's going to be coming, that level is going to continue to increase, and but up to right now, a good tennis player could probably transition and compete in a couple of years at a pro level.
And those are probably the kind of things they've got to look at. That tennis player that crosses over and finds the sport real challenging, and maybe they need a Billie Jean King type of challenge. What was the guy she played? I can't remember, but where you get that's maybe a thing to look at, is getting a tennis, pickleball player challenging a few tennis players, spank them real bad, and maybe generate some profile.
Yeah, there's a good poster child. Annalie Waters is really the top women's player right now, and she's been to the top for multiple years. I believe she might be 19 years old right now, but she's at the top of the game, and she's got some years left. But there's younger people that are coming up and challenging her already, but that's, if you ask the 25 million pickleball players, to name 3 pros, I think 24.5 million of them probably wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah, like Ben Johns, I think, is the biggest pickleball name for men.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and so it's hard, like, dominant pickleball player, but that's like you get people playing it. It's funny because you mentioned people play it. I think they enjoy it because there's lots of sports. The truth are, you can't just go up and hey, let's go pick up and play soccer. Right, like you're running around,
go skating,
right, or go skating, or even basketball, because people are like, oh my God, you know what? This guy's taller or shorter, and if they're running up and down the court after 10 minutes,
6, 8, 10, like it's
with pickleball, you can play it too. You can play singles, you can play pairs, and lots of times you go 3 or 4 couples, and they rotate in. You play a 10-15 minute game, and then you get to rest, and it's very social. But I'm not, and that's why I'd love to have you on, Mike, and appreciate your honesty, is to go from being social to being something that people will watch. Other sports, people will watch because they're like, well, yeah, I can't do that, right? Or it's super fast, right? And pickleball, well, when you watch it, even at the pro level, like, it is amazing. Their hand-eye, it's kind of like ping pong. But I look at ping pong, and ping pong, people will watch highlights of ping pong and be like, oh my God, you see these rallies, and they're hammering the ball, and they're like, how do they do it? But it doesn't translate to people watching. Like, what you need to do, Mike, I think, is go on a tour of darts in Britain and be like, how the hell did they make this sport such an event? Like, it's like guy stands there, boom, throws a dart, one time, and people are going crazy. Like, it's wild, right? Like, it's not like it's that, like, sure, you got to throw, like, it's precision, but it's not like it's overly fast moving or anything like that.
But the good news is everybody at the bar is drunk.
Yeah.
Everybody's home having a drink. Dude. So you don't drink without playing darts.
But I watched, but still, you go watch it, like, you watch it on TV, man.
And it's compelling on TV.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
Like it's wild. That's what you got to have, like, Thunderdome for pickleball.
Yeah, well, we might get there. I mean, the crowds are growing. The professional tours, again, financially, I think they're still working on making it work 100%. But, they're getting big crowds. We have, there's a couple of major events. There's a US Open event that draws 3,000 players and probably that many on a daily basis, at least, to come watch. So there's interest, and it's growing. The tours that are out there, multiple games every weekend. They're moving around and having different. They're drawing some crowds, but maybe it'll come. When you get that many people interested in the game and appreciating a pro level, it might get there, but it's going to take some time.
So how does USA Pickleball help the growth, do you think, like, with the pro league? Like, do you have to work hand in hand? Like, we see USA Hockey, and obviously there's USA Hockey, and there's Canada Hockey, or Hockey Canada, right? And then there's the NHL. How in unison, how in step do you have to be as, USA Pickleball with the pro league?
Well, you'd like to be and want to be 100% in unison. I mean, our job in growing the game, and we're out there, we're getting paddles and training in the hands of youth. That's a big part of what we want to do, because we just want to grow the base. Our focus is more on the amateur side, of course, just kind of growing, getting access. There's a shortage of courts, and courts are coming online all the time, but they're if you drive around and see people playing, those courts are always full and people are waiting to play. So the big part of that is do what we can to help facilitate the growth of having more facilities and courts, but also getting that youth exposed to it and getting the equipment in their hands. That's a big part of what we do. I would like to work, closer and better with the tours. There's 2 competing tours. There's the APP and the PPA, which, both professional tours. They don't particularly get along, of course. The PPA tour is owned by Tom Dundon, of the Carolinas, and they have a great business plan. I mean, they're kind of the gorilla, if you will, in the market. They're controlling a lot of the space, but that's a for-profit, and they do things, probably for different reasons than I would like to see. And I would like to work closer with those guys. We're almost sometimes competing where, if they don't particularly like something that we are doing or don't think we're doing it right, they're wanting to do it, almost usurp what we're doing. And I understand the pro game's going to be different. You might want some different rules, even, the equipment parameters, can be different, but, I'm trying to work with them more than, and I wish it was a little bit of better relationship there. And on the APP side, I'll say, that is in place. We work hand in hand with them, but it's a little bit of a competitive thing. And, at the end of the day, it's a business, and Tom needs to do what he needs to do, what he thinks is best for him.
Mike, I really appreciate this. What's kind of the next step? You look at Pickleball USA, like if you look at the next calendar year, what are the goals that you need to achieve?
I think, from a macro standpoint, the next step, Olympics. We just got done with Winter Olympics. Olympics are coming up here in 28. That will not be any pickleball exposed there, but the following Olympics in 32 is probably a good target. So part of that is getting the infrastructure in, getting aligned with locally, with the US OPC. It's growing like crazy internationally as well, as you can imagine. And so getting that, there's a lot of things that have to happen at the IOC level, Olympic level, and international federations. We're trying to help facilitate that. While we are just a national entity here, because it was invented here and we made the rules, and we're a big part of this. We're playing a big role in how this is growing, and we want it to be played, keeping the integrity of the game as well. With early on, my concern was, as it was growing so fast in China and India, if they decided to, make the net, a foot taller or change the parameters of the size of the court and whatnot, we wanted to try to keep the integrity. And I think there's enough inertia now where the game's being played consistently. But maybe a shorter answer is getting our eyes on the Olympic side, because I think that would make a big boost for the sport overall, get the interest in the sport. But it really is going to, growing it at the youth level is probably as important as anything for my role.
You need, what you need is a pickleball comedy movie, right? That's what you need, like Dodgeball, just pickleball, something along those lines.
I haven't seen it yet, but there is a, there is a pickleball movie that I don't know if it's released yet, but it's coming, and it's the same. I think it's the same producer of Dodgeball.
Come on!
I swear. I wish I had the details of it, but the reason I know that is that Shane Doan, former Coyote captain, longtime hockey guy, he's involved with it somehow.
Well, so Connor Halley just whispered in my ear. Cons, are you serious? That's the name of the movie?
It's called The Dink. Yeah, it's produced by Ben Stiller.
Oh,
Ben
my
Stiller,
God.
yeah, there you go.
Washed up tennis pro tries to save a club by reluctantly playing pickleball to earn his father's respect. Ed Harris, Ben Stiller, Wayne Wilderson. Well, there you go.
Released yet? Or?
No, it's not released yet. But people are going to watch it simply for the name, The Dink. Classic. Well, there you go, Mike. That you guys better be ready. Once it comes out, there'll be a lot of demand maybe for new pickleballers.
That's all right with me.
Awesome. Well, thanks, man. We appreciate it. Thanks for your time, Mike. Continued success.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for coming on. We appreciate it.
There you go. That's Mike Nealy from USA Pickleball. I really like that conversation of that, but also the first segment, if you missed it. I really liked his honesty about the Coyotes when you're CEO of the Coyotes. And I love that. I said, yeah, you know what? When you're CEO, the 1 year they had their most success was when the NHL owned the team and had taken over ownership. So we didn't have to worry about your son trying to take over the team and run the team. And that's the truth, man. Like it was, and I know it's funny, but that's, just because you have money and brains in some business doesn't guarantee you'll have success in the next business.
No.
Right. And unless you go in with the same business strategy. Okay. What worked? Right. What was our culture? What did we what did we use to allow us to be successful
in this business?
If you look
at the modern dynasties, that's what happened. And what hockey people, I'm sure it's the same with basketball people and football people. Hockey's different, boss. It's not different. You got to acquire undervalued assets. You develop them and you sell them for more than you paid for. It's really pretty simple. You do it through, but what the teams that you see that have done so well, they teams, these are private equity firms. Like, when the Guggenheim bought the Dodgers, they came in and just went, no, we're going to run like a private equity firm. We're going to go out and find really cheap stuff. Tom Dunnan's doing the same. That's exactly the way.
Well, now they spend a lot though.
No, but they spend a lot. But I talked when we had Stan on the other day. Do you know Stan Kasten, the president of the Dodgers? You know what? When they just signed Shotani's contract, it was already paid for.
Well, exactly. Because
so it's like, because they're running it like a private equity firm. They didn't go out and sign this kid Shotani Otani, sorry, who had the last, because hoping it would work out. No, they had it paid for before it started. I was surprised to hear from Stan that, as we know in most sports, the pro league takes all the international revenue. But what happened is they went and marketed to Japanese companies. Their board revenue, their in stadium revenue went through the roof. And I actually remember talking to, I don't follow baseball very. I called Stan and he picked up the phone. And I said, so what's up? He said, well, I don't know if you read, but we signed a guy from Japan. He's, I didn't no idea, but it was all done. They had the business run. So when owners start figuring out what Tom Dundon has figured out, you'll consistently be a perennial contender because you got to run it like that. You can't let your kid run it just because.
Yes, 100%. Makes total sense. We'll come back. We'll wrap things up. The business of sports. Jason Gregor, Rich Winter here on Sports 1440. The business of sport. And we are 9 days away, Rich, from the trade deadline. And you obviously have a few clients. And I'm sure every year it's different. Some guys are like, there's no chance I'm getting traded. And 99% of the time, they're right. Yeah. And then there's others who are like, man, I'd like to get traded. And then they don't get traded, right? Like, I want to focus on that sometimes because I think there's players that have asked for a trade or, hey, you know what? Rich, tell them I want to get traded. Okay. And then they don't get traded. And then they end up staying on that team and have really good success sometimes, right? Like it varies from month to month almost for certain guys. And, like when things aren't going well, whether it's the team or personally, or maybe you don't like the coach, like there's so many different reasons, but the percentage of guys who think it would be, I want to get traded, right? Because you're frustrated and at that time, maybe you're emotional and then they don't get traded and you talk to them like 2 years later and the guy's like, God, that was a really good,
signed a 6-year deal.
Yeah. Right.
Well, and I always tell people like it's hard to deal with athletes because if you don't understand them, like for example, it's counterintuitive to this situation. I'll want to sit down with them, go through some financial planning, long term. Well, a hockey player's long term perspective is Tuesday, because he didn't play that well on Saturday.
Yeah.
So it's really hard. And then what flips? They've got 3 or 4 games. They're not getting ice time. Things aren't going well, and all of a sudden, geez, you got a couple of goals. It's mind-boggling how many guys wanted to get traded in November, happy in January, want to get traded again. And there's lots of dynamics that go into it. I would say that for the most part, players that want to get traded are underperforming their contract. And this isn't, to me, it's interesting because many GMs will say, you guys always want the money. No, because I think there's a range of reasonable. Let's say a guy's worth $1 million. At $1.1 million, I'm okay with it. Can live with it. At $1.9 million, we got to move that money and see if we can get something at the deadline.
Mm-hmm.
Now, on the other hand, if he's worth $1 million, he's making $925. I'm not getting fired, so we're okay. So but when you get outside that range of reasonable, the player's always unhappy. But surprisingly enough, to me, ask James Neal, they're most unhappy when they're grossly overpaid because they're getting beat up in the press. They've got children at school. That talk circulates in the hallways. And so those players more than anybody want to get out and try something different because it's not, and I always tell people, when hockey's going well, they don't think about it, right?
Yeah.
Stay out late, have a few glasses of wine, go to a late movie, but hockey's not going well, can't think about anything else. No. And it's funny, I tell guys all the time, I've had to go through this over the time. Guys are struggling because they're told, then they start doing something different, right? Like I got to get to bed early. Well, everything they do something different. They go, their brain is wired to go, oh man, I'm in this slump. And I always tell them, first step when you're not playing well, do everything off the ice you would do when you're on a hot streak, right? Because you're away from the rink 14 hours, 15, 16, 18 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
Like don't change that routine to continue to remind yourself. So it's just a lot of it's just psychological but mostly it's really tough on guys when they're overpaid. I'm sure like Andrew Mangiapane is not sleeping well, right? They're not happy
Yes.
to be underperforming,
Mhm.
right? It's nothing to do with the money. They don't think about the money. Like that goes by direct deposit. Most of them barely remember what they're getting paid. They have enough, but it doesn't matter. It's not coming to their mind. It's just going every night to the rink and geez, I want to play better. I want to contribute. What players want more than anything? They want to perform at the best of which they're capable. And when you hit 60% of that, life's pretty miserable, man. Trade me tomorrow.
Yeah. And that's where, that, psychologists or whoever, you try to be positive, you work with them. But there's also now, I think, so you come out of this break, and this is a unique year, very unique. So you go away, you're having fun. Now you come back and it's like, man, we got 10 days. And there's lots of players on different teams because if you don't have a no movement clause, you have no say. Even if you think you're secure, like I'm sure, like, hey, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Zach Cumming, like there's guys that aren't worried about it, right? But I would think there's some guys on some teams who are like, man, I hope I get traded because, maybe you're on a bad team and you're an older player and you want to get moved to a good team, right? But then you don't get traded and now you got to, oh my God, now I got to finish out the season, right? And now maybe I'm a UFA and I got to try to play well to get another contract. Like there's lots of different dynamics and sometimes we overlook.
That I shut down very quickly is you got a young guy coming out of his entry-level contract who gets traded, right? He's been traded once, he's 22 and he's not happy. And I said, look, guys, we got to be really careful because the third trade by 22, 23, that's because it's not working out. It's over. Right?
Yeah.
It's over because now all of a sudden, and people think, oh, these GMs are paying attention to all these players. There's 1,500 players, between the NHL and the American Hockey League. Whatever happened to, he was drafted by, and that's what happens. They forget about them fairly quickly. So I caution guys, be careful what you ask for at the particular age because you might get it. And if you get it, because you got to remember, after a trade, you've been in an organization 4 or 5 years. Coach knows you. Coach likes you personally, knows your wife. Seen you play a couple of pretty good games, a little disappointed in your performance now. Maybe you're in the press box, maybe you're not. But you go to another team and you're judged by that coach over what happens over the next 96 hours. And if it's not good, buddy, it could be a lot worse. At least that first organization, they traded or they drafted you, they've nurtured you in 4 or 5 training camps, right? Yeah, it's be careful.
Well, you're right, because the grass isn't always greener. You don't know. We all assume that things will be better.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, I'm going to get traded here. Yeah.
Well, because we are hopeful. That's human nature, right?
Yeah. And if they acquired me, they must think I'm good.
Well, that's always what I say to a guy. Okay, the bad news is you got traded. The good news is the team that got you actually wanted you, right? So that's hopeful, but you just never know. We see it all the time. GM loves you, just loves the player.
Yeah, but the coach doesn't.
Coach is like, well, why did we do this? Like, I don't like he's too slow or he's whatever he is. And I always tell players, and they find it shocking at first. The coach is never wrong. They're never wrong. Because they say a player can't score. They put him on the 4th line with a couple slugs. He can't score. Martin Straka scored 29 points 1 year. And then he got bought out. Like they gave him $500,000 of his $750,000 salary because go home. Like here's $500,000, go home. 2 years later, look up the stats, 95 points.
Yep.
But nothing changed except in Florida, Doug McLean, too small, lost a bit of a step. Don't think he can kill penalties. Playing 7 or 8 minutes a night. Goes back to Pittsburgh where he scored 30 goals as a rookie. They put him on the first line with Yager and Francis. And next thing you know, he's playing second power play, first power play unit, 95 points. So a guy goes from bought out all because the coach was right. The coach was right. Martin Straka cannot score when you're playing with Bill Lindsay.
Yeah.
Which Bill, I hope, isn't listening because Bill's a client.
It's interesting you mentioned Straka because I remember he got bounced around 3 different teams in 1 year from Ottawa to the Islanders.
It was a night. Well, and it was
Florida,
all
right?
So that happened. That was probably the most bizarre situation. So he goes because they had all the ownership issues with Merritt, and so he had got that big contract after he got 95 points, and it wasn't anything to do with Marty. They needed to shed money, so they traded him to Ottawa. Coach didn't like him. Traded him to
the Islanders.
Nobody liked him. And it's mind-boggling. So he gets to and then he gets the buyout. He comes back to Pittsburgh, and then he gets traded at the end of that deal to LA, the end of the season, and they have no interest. And all he did is play 400 more games with the Rangers, and basically, played at the 70, 60, 70, 80 point level, because that's what's, the problem often isn't the player. It's the perception of the player that leads coaches to make some really bad decisions. And I got to tell you, there's a lot of players out there that that I represent, that you've never heard of, that are better than many of the players in the NHL, because they didn't get the opportunity.
One man's junk is another man's treasure.
First thing you need, like every player besides the Connor McDavids of the world, they all want more of one thing: opportunity.
Yes.
Yeah, if I play on the first line, I'm way better than Gregor. Like, that guy sucks. I mean, you see his shot, like, it's terrible. And then if I could just get a little more ice time, they all believe that's why they're there. And you know what?
No one ever said my shot sucked. Skating, terrible, but never my shot.
I didn't see either one, so I was just taking it. I was just swinging.
It's even better. Shot's even better now, buddy. Oof. God, I wish I could aim like that when I was younger.
I got to see the video. I got to see the video.
Foot speed, that's still a problem.
Well, Vinny Prossa will tell you foot speed was irrelevant.
Well, that's probably good. So that is probably good. So we'll see. Rich, next Wednesday we're gonna have it is trade deadline week, so we're gonna have a trade. And you know what? We're hoping to line up a guy who went through it, because I think there's lots of elements of the trade and different viewpoints that we probably overlook at times, because everybody sees the end result. Player A gets, like, Brett Kulak. Brett Kulak's Marty Straka this year. Yeah. He went from Edmonton to Pittsburgh, but now he's going to Colorado, so it's a little bit different, because the Islanders were terrible, and went to Florida and they weren't very good. But the Colorado Avalanche are the best team in the NHL right now, at least record wise. So he's probably happy about it. But he has 2 kids, and I know they had moved the family to Pittsburgh, and
we don't know when their kids' birthdays are. They might be next week. I mean, it's all kinds of stuff. That's why I like being an agent, because I don't have to go to the games at any particular time. I got to spend time, for the most part, with my family, and it's tough on those guys. Like, people forget. I always tell people I don't represent hockey players. I represent dads.
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised. This is not an easy life. Like,
I think people see the salary. Right. And hey, you get to play hockey. It's super fun. And don't discount, like, I don't feel sorry for them, but I can empathize that not every job, despite, being in the public eye and everything else, there's pros and cons to every job. Every job. And, some people are better cut out for it.
Well, but at the end of the day, my stepfather used to tell me all the time, and he's totally right. He said, if money will solve your problems, you don't have any.
Because their problems aren't that serious.
Yeah, if money can solve it, it's not really a problem. The problem is get your affairs in order, man. Or you got to get to the hospital. It's your daughter.
Yeah,
that's
money
a problem.
Can't,
money,
solve that problem.
And it's proven scientifically. Like, once you hit that minimum level where you can sustain yourself, the value of money in terms of the quality of your life, almost irrelevant. You would think you'd be miserable in a small apartment. I'm telling you, I spend a lot. I really like to look out for those guys who are making our lives easier. The guys that are doing the gardening at the resort we're staying. Talk to them, and you know what? A lot of them are way more happy. They're way happier than the billionaire friends I have. They're just happy. They're spending time with their kids. They have a 9-to-5 job. They're the coach at the basketball team. They're volunteering at the school. At the end of the day, hockey's tough. And then you turn 32 and you're not prepared for that. And that's a problem. And I always like Claude Lemieux when he talked about that. I like the way he put it in perspective. He says, if you played hockey, you retire. So here, you take your wife on those 2 vacations you could never take her on during this, hockey season. Maybe take your kids on 1 or 2 of those. And then you sit in the kitchen. Yeah, you got 10 million in the bank and no purpose. Yeah, it's tough. There's a lot of that. These players pay. There's a lot of consequences to the decision to make. Now, Isaiah McDavid, those guys, Zach, some of them, they don't have to worry about that. That guy who played 6 years in the NHL, made $2 or $3 million, was taxed out of his mind. In New York, he's got 800,000, $1 million saved. He's 32, no skills. It's you don't have to cry, cry for them, but there's a lot they give up. It's a big commitment to something they love that I'm sure many of them would like to have those days back where, all of us got to spend those birthdays with our kids.